Do you want to learn how to ride twisty safely on your motorcycle? Well, you've come to the right place. Not only will this video teach you everything you need to know about how to ride twisties on your motorcycle safely, but it is being taught by yours truly, Yami Noob, who knows a little bit thing or two about riding safe on the streets. Number one, I am a licensed club racer. I'm pretty fast on track, not the fastest, but getting there, and it's pretty good. Number two, I've gotten messed up on the streets myself, so I can speak from personal experience as to what it means when you get it wrong on the streets and why it's so important that if you're gonna be out there riding on public roads, that you understand how to ride twisty safely on your motorcycle. Let's get into it. The very first thing you should think about before you even go to the twisty road you're gonna have fun on is to know the route and to scope the route. What do I mean by this? I mean that number one, you should never go to a random twisty road you've never been to before and just start frickin' sending it. That's a bad idea. You should be familiar with the route you're gonna be going on, and then afterwards, you should also scope the route out when you get there. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you get to this twisty road spot, you should probably do one or two passes to check for road conditions, check for debris, check for law enforcement, and anything else that might endanger you while you're out on your twisty ride. Riding twisties is one of the best things when it comes to riding motorcycles, and you want to make sure you're going to be doing it safely, and the first thing you should do is to know your route and to scope the route. The second most important thing when it comes to riding twisty roads is to use your damn brakes. Look, guys, I know we all ride motorcycles because we want to pick up the throttle and send them and go fast. They are really, really good at doing that. But the most effective thing you can do when you're out there riding twisty roads is to use your brakes. When you're coming into corners, you should be trail braking lightly, lighter and longer, as the Yamaha Champ School boys would say, and that's going to provide much more control as you go into these corners. If the road starts to tighten up, which is something we're going to talk about later in this video, and you're not going to want to miss my points about vanishing points and other points like that, if the road starts to tighten up and you start kind of getting out of sorts, if you're on the brakes, you can put the bike in the speed and the direction you need for the corner that you are at. So when you're riding twisty roads, the best friend of yours on your motorcycle is going to be your front brake lever. Make sure you know how to use it, make sure you use it effectively, and make sure you're trailing it into corners when you're out there riding those twisties. So now that you know the ride, you know that you're going to be using your front brakes, what's left? Well, it's all about keeping your pace in check. Now listen guys, the biggest advice I can give for you on this is to ride at 5 or 6/10 pace maximum. What do I mean by that? I mean that whenever you're riding at 80, 90, 95, 100, 110% of your riding abilities, not the bike's abilities, because these bikes will go way faster than you're capable of doing on the streets. What I mean by that is you gotta keep yourself in check. You gotta leave yourself plenty of bandwidth, plenty of ability to allow yourself to operate the machine in a way that's going to be safe and efficient as well. Because if you go out there and you're riding at 80 or 90%, you're always operating at the very limit of your abilities, and if so there's any surprises on the roads, you're not going to be prepared to tackle them. Whereas if you're riding in that 5 to 10 sweet spot, you can still have fun, you can trail your bike in, pick up the throttle, enjoy yourself, but if something were to happen that's unexpected, which happens all the time when you're on the street, you can still operate in a way that's going to be able to get yourself out of danger. You're not operating just thinking about how to make the motorcycle go as fast as possible. You have bandwidth in your mental abilities to focus on incoming objects, debris, animals crossing the road, people crossing double yellows, and all kinds of crazy stuff that can happen while you're out there riding on the streets. So operate at a 6/10 pace, and you're gonna do yourself a great favor when you're rolling around on those twisties. Okay, this fourth point may be the most important thing in this whole video, so if you get nothing else out of this video, I really hope that you pay attention to this next one. It's all about the vanishing point. Now, when you're riding a motorcycle on a twisty set of roads, you're gonna start to notice that the road vanishes away from you. Whereas if you're on a big straight road, it just vanishes wherever the horizon is and you just keep going straight. When you're on twisty roads on a motorcycle, you start to notice that the vanishing point can tighten up or go further out. You need to be hyper aware of what is happening to this vanishing point as you're riding. If the vanishing point is coming closer to you, meaning that you don't have as much ability to see what's coming around you, your speeds should be coming down. You should be riding slower and slower if your vanishing point is tightening up, because that means that the curve is tightening up. Looking ahead while you're riding on a twisty road is going to inform a lot of what's coming your way, even though you can't see what's around those bends. You can often see just far enough to see where that vanishing point is going. And is it contracting towards you, or is it expanding away from you? you should mentally keep in check that if the vanishing point is coming towards you, you should be on your brakes and tightening up what you're doing. Whereas if it's opening up, you can probably pick the bike up and open the throttle. But there should be a one-to-one relationship between your brakes and your throttle whenever the vanishing point is coming towards you or going away from you. That's why you know the route and you scope the route. That way you don't have any surprises while you're out there riding on those twisty roads. But again, if you're out there riding with some buddies and you're on a big road trip or something and you will encounter some twisty roads you've never been on before, using the vanishing point trick is going to be your best friend. Riding those brakes, using them effectively while the vanishing point is coming towards you or far away from you, and picking up the throttle in the opposite case is going to be your best bet. Now, another best bet that you could make is signing up for our giveaway motorcycle. This KTM RC390 over here is a fantastic corner carving machine. So if you love going out there and ripping up twisties, I highly recommend you head over to yamanoob.co, join our subscription package, become a member, get access to behind the scenes content, our exclusive Discord where I give you guys all kinds of ins and outs of what's going on here at Yamanoob, and you also get entered to win all of our fantastic giveaway motorcycles. We have a really special bike coming up in February that you are not going to want to miss, that if you are on the Discord server right now, you'd already know what it is. Head over to yamanoob.co, become a member, and get entered to win this fantastic KTM RC390. Let's learn more about how to ride on twisties. Okay, I know I said my last point was my most important, but this might actually be the most important point in the video. It is ride your own ride. It is so important that if you're on a twisty set of roads, especially, don't try to keep up with people if you feel you're operating beyond your 60 or 70th percentile. What's gonna happen is you're gonna try to keep up with somebody and you're just gonna be following a tail light the whole time. If you're following a tail light and not focusing on the road, you are begging for a disaster to happen. It's gonna be a really bad time for you if you're chasing someone down a twisty road and not riding your own ride. You gotta know when to call it quits. If you are not comfortable with the pace that other people are doing on this twisty ride, there is gonna be no shame in you leaving, a couple seconds, 10 or 20 seconds ahead of the guy in front of you, because if you're all in the group together, you'll meet up at the next stop anyways, at the next stop sign. They're not gonna leave you behind. But we're also gonna get into later in this video about riding with strangers and why that might not be the best idea. But in this case, if you're in a group, ride your own ride, stay within your 50 to 60th percentile, don't go too crazy, and you'll keep yourself a lot more safe when you're riding those twisties. Now, I mentioned in the past point that you don't want to ride with strangers, but I really want to stress this point in a separate point on how to ride twisties safely is if you're out there enjoying a twisty road with you and a couple buddies, or it's just yourself, you see a stranger come along, and by stranger I mean someone who's just not in your group, right? And this guy's railing around corners or he's riding really sketchy. Whatever you do not ride with this person near you. You don't know this person's abilities, you don't know their experience, you don't know anything about them, and they sure as hell probably will not come back to save you if you lop yourself over a cliff when you were trying to keep up with them, or if they rear-end you when they were riding near you. Do not ride with random strangers on twisty roads. It is way more risk than it is worth. Truthfully, you're not going to gain anything by riding with a stranger unless you're going to meet up at the coffee shop next door and then make a new best friend, but that's pretty unlikely. I think it's way more safe to meet new riders at a bike night when you're all off your bike and you can kind of get to know the person a little bit and their riding style, and then go on a kind of easygoing group ride at first to see what kind of riding they like to do and how they ride. People's experience levels, especially here in America, can be really broad. You have people like me who are licensed club racers, and then you have people out there on twisties who are, first or second year street riders who've never been at the track. So that's going to be a very broad spectrum of experience, and you need to find people that ride like you. If you don't like taking a lot of risks when you're riding twisty roads, if you don't like, ripping wheelies between corners and stuff, then you probably need to find a different crowd. Conversely, if you like riding super duper aggressive on twisty roads, and I myself count myself not one of those people, right? You need to find a group that does that too. There's a group out there for everybody. You can typically suss out what kind of riding these groups do. But as a rule of thumb, I just really recommend not riding with strangers and just not overdoing it on the street in general, but try to find your tribe and find your group for your twisty road riding, and don't ride with randoms. Another point that gets overlooked is road conditions. When you're out there riding twisty roads, you should have scoped out the route and scoped out the road, and you should see what kind of conditions are going to exist in the road whenever you're going out there. But if you're on the first time on a twisty road on a big group ride or something, Be very mindful of road conditions. Did it just rain? Is it known for having a bunch of debris on this road? Do you live in a sandy area where there might have been sand washes that got out into the road? Are there gravel patches in the road? All of that's gonna really inform the type of grip you're gonna be able to generate while you're out there on that twisty road. And so being hyper aware of when and where you can pick up the throttle and when and where you should be noticing grip is gonna make a big difference on your twisty road riding. Just because there's sand or gravel in the road doesn't mean that you're going to immediately crash. It means that you need to be more aware and maybe pick up the bike in the middle of the corner at a slower pace so you can navigate it. It may be that you cannot go through that corner at 35 or 40 degrees of lean when there's sand in the road, but at maybe 10 degrees of lean, you'll be able to navigate that corner. So being mindful of road conditions is gonna be super important while you're out there riding the twisties. All right, folks, the last point I wanna make in today's video, and it should be obvious, it is being hyper aware. When you're out there enjoying your motorcycle in a sporting manner, riding the twisty roads, having fun, doing what these things were designed to do, you need to keep in mind that you are operating them in a little bit more of an elevated and aggressive way. You're not just kind of cruising on a straight road with nobody around you. You're doing something with this bike that's a little bit higher risk, right? So you need to be hyper aware. You don't need to be thinking about what your ex texted you last night. You don't need to be thinking about the email you need to send to work. You're there to do a thing. Focus on the thing. I recommend turning off your cardo. Don't really talk to people while you're riding twisty roads. Don't have your phone on a phone mount while you're doing that either. Try to be super engaged with what you're doing because the consequences of spilling out on a twisty road can be very severe, right? If you slip out on a low side and you go into oncoming traffic and somebody hits you, that's not gonna be a good time. If you're on the outside of the road and you go off a cliff, obviously not a good time, right? You need to be mindful and safe while you're doing this stuff and being hyper aware. Are you riding at dusk? Are there gonna be a bunch of animals out? Are the road conditions gonna be safe? Do you know this route? You gotta be hyper aware when you're riding the twisties and you'll be able to ride them a whole lot safer. All right, guys, thanks so much for checking out today's video. I hope you learned something about how to ride twisties safely. Let me know down below in the comments if I missed anything or you think I should cover anything more in depth. Remember, this KTM RC390 is a giveaway motorcycle, and I am super hyped on this bike. We have tons of plans with this thing. We're taking it out on track. We recently put RS10 tires on it. We're gonna see how it compares against a prepped Ninja 400 on track. We have that super special giveaway bike coming in February that we're gonna compare this bike to that bike as well, even though they're not direct competitors, and it's gonna be a great time. Remember, this is a giveaway bike. Head over to yammynoob.co, sign up as a member, join our Discord to get access to all the great stuff we're doing on there, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Well, look at you. You've made it to the end of another Yammy Noob video. You should consider yourself pretty lucky because I have curated this one right over here for you to continue watching. It's probably just as good as the one you just saw. Unless you hated the one you just saw. I don't know, maybe leave me a comment down below about how much you hated it as well too. Or just keep watching this one. Make sure you keep watching Yammy Noob. Don't forget to keep watching Yammy Noob. That's the most important thing. Keep watching Yammy Noob.